Okay, let's make a start inshallah. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم إنا نسألك الإخلاص اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu and welcome everybody. Today inshallah we are looking to complete ayah number 13 which we started yesterday. So the part that we did yesterday was, this is the part that we completed, alhamdulillah. If I just repeat this part. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. And then we come to the part that we're doing today, inshallah, the completion. I am going to say the isti'adha and the basmala again, just so that everybody gets a chance to repeat, inshallah, and get that practice in as well. So if I could start with Sister Humaira. Just a reminder with the ra, because I know when you're reminded, mashallah, you tend to get we hear a much better and a much more improved version of it. So I'm going to remind you and then let you get into it. So we said about the ra, it is close to the makhraj of the noon. It is just behind the noon. You are not curling the tongue. You have to use that top side of the tongue as well. So the top side of the tongue just goes straight up. It touches the top and it comes straight back down. There's no rolling of the tongue going backwards. It's just straight up, straight down, but make sure you use the top side. Okay, let's try it. Inshallah, may Allah make it easy for you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
Well done, mashallah. Well done. It's just mina now, the noon. And you think because you were thinking about the ra's coming and you're focusing, so you just lost the noon. Mina shaytan.
من الشيطان.
And then, Auntie, if you can join me for the basmala, please. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
Jazakumullah khairan. I'm glad you're making an effort to separate the ra and the ha, so that's good, alhamdulillah. Okay, so we start off this ayah, we have the word inna. I'm not sure if I think I have mentioned the makhraj of the noon before. If not, doesn't matter, alhamdulillah, the reminders are still good. With the makhraj of the noon, when we say inna uses the tip of the tongue, okay? And the tip of the tongue, so if this is my upper jaw, if you look at, now I'm going to be as close as I can, you know the upper two teeth, so these two here, you have this gum part which sort of is in between, right? That's where you're going for the noon, okay? So as you can see, it's very close to the teeth, okay? So that's where you're going. You say inna, inna. And we have mentioned before the noon mushaddad, of course, we have to hold it and we prolong the gunna and we say inna. Now you do have to be careful with the, sorry, just thinking my pen. Right, you do have to be careful with the word inna because sometimes in the mushaf it appears like this and you see it with a mad alif, okay? And so in this case where you have the mad alif, then you will stretch it, the ending as well for 2 counts. You'll say inna, okay? But you have to be very careful when you see this one that doesn't have the alif with it. And then you have to just prolong the joining and say inna, inna. So just the na is just 1 count. So you've got to be careful of when you're prolonging and when you're not prolonging the ending of that, inshallah. Then we have the word akramakum. Now the letter ta and the letter kaf are 2 letters that share 2 of the same qualities. They both have this shidda quality and they both have hams. So I think in the past we've seen it with the letter ta, when I've mentioned if the ta has a sukoon. So when both of these have a sukoon, we hear both of these qualities. But shidda is the stopping of the sound. Hams is the continuation of the breath. Okay, so you have to stop the sound of your voice, but you want to hear the breath. And I mentioned with the ta before in previous sessions how we say at. You stop the sound first and you say at, the sound stops, and then you hear the hums later. It's the same with the kaf. And we see the same thing happening here. We say ak, stop the sound first, and then hear the hums. Ak, ak, ak. Okay, so with this one, we do hear the stopping of the sound. We sometimes have letters that the sound just keeps running. This is not one of those letters because it is a shidda letter. And the shidda means that it has a strength to it. Okay, it has a strength in terms of the makhraj is strong. For those of you that are familiar already by shidda, when we're saying that the makhraj is strong, the makhraj is so strong that whichever two parts are meeting, so it may be the tongue with the upper palate, or it may be the lips, for example, when they meet with strength, and because of that, the sound cannot pass, and that's why the sound has to stop. So it is the shidda letters that have this stopping of the sound, okay, because there's a strength in that articulation point. So here we say akramakum. The ra, of course, is heavy. We know that. Look, it's got something at the top. We've talked about that. If it's got something at the top, a fatha or a dhamma, then it is heavy. So here the ra would be heavy. So we say akra, akra. Okay, akra. I mean, at the moment, I'm pausing after the ak just to make a point and just separating them. But actually, when we do read, we read it in continuation. We say akra, akra. So after doing the hums, you go straight to the ra. Akra, akra. Okay, straight to the ra. Then we have the meme back to a light letter. So this is where you want to be careful. You do not want to say akrama. Okay, you don't want to rhyme your meme with the ra because the meme is light and the ra is heavy. So we say akrama, akramakum, meme fatha ma akrama. Then we have kum, which we've seen many times, so I'm not going to go into that today. Inna akramakum. Inna akramakum. If you could try that for me, Sister Salma.
Inna akramakum.
Your ra can be a little heavier. Inna akramakum.
Inna akramakum.
That's better. Jazakumullah khairan. If you just say it on its own for me, meme fatama.
Meme fatama.
Yes, so this same ma is the one I want to hear. What's happening is after the ra, because you're making a conscious effort to make the meme light, you're going slightly the other way and it's sounding like a meh, right? So you want to keep it as ma. There's a lot to think about, huh?
Yeah, except the kaf and the ra.
Yes, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Take it slowly if you need to. I'll say it
Inshallah.
slowly as well, so everybody at home can say it slowly too. Inna akramakum.
Inna akramakum.
Again, akramakum.
Akramakum.
Okay, let me see your mouth as well.
Does it sound like a meh?
It's still a little bit, yes. So I'll make you say the meme fathamma, and then once you say the ma, think about how your lips are positioned, how wide they are, how not wide they are, right? Meme fathamma.
Meme fathamma.
So remember that, register that. Ma, that's where you're going. Akramakum.
Akramakum.
That's better. Jazakumullahu khairan. Alhamdulillah. Then we have the word عند Allah. Now we have the ayn with the kasra. We have to make sure we say I, not a, right? Then you have the noon sakina followed by a dal. So if you can remember at home and you want to beat me to it, if you can say the rule out loud to yourself, this is noon sakin followed by dal. I'll give you a bit of a clue. In this case, we are hiding the noon. So this is the one where you get prepared for the dal. Okay, this was an example of ikhfa haqiqi. Okay, and because the next letter is a dal and dal is a light letter, it will have a light gunna. The gunna will sound light too because you're preparing for a light sounding letter. So that's going to make your gunna sound light because your mouth is positioned, as you say the gunna, your mouth is already positioned in a light position. Okay, so we have here عند. Now remember again, the noon, that you do not go to the makhraj of the noon. Instead, you are close to the makhraj of the dal. You are not at the makhraj, you're not pressing on the makhraj of dal. You pronounce the gunna, but you're ready and you're close to the dal. How do we say this? عند 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 الله. Okay. I'll say the next, we'll do the next word as well since they are joint, and then we'll practice them together, inshallah. The dal is joint with the lams in the name of Allah. Now remember, with the lams in the name of Allah, we always have to bear in mind and think about, are these lams going to be read heavy or light? So in this case, they will be heavy. Why? Because the letter before has a fatha. Remember, if the letter before has a fatha or a dhamma, then the lams will be heavy. So in this case, we will be pronouncing both lams heavy. عند الله عند الله عند الله. Okay, if you could try that for me onto the screen.
عند الله.
Yes. What I want you to do, Auntie, as you join the dal with the lam, well done, mashallah, both lams were heavy. What I want you to do, as you join the dal and the lam, I don't want you to stop, because what happens, you pause a little bit. You say, Allah. See that pause in the middle? I don't want that pause, because lam is tawassut. Keep it running for a little bit, not too long. And then straight away, go on to the la. Allah. Allah.
عند الله.
Yes, that's much better. Well done. Alhamdulillah. Barakallah feek. Well done, Auntie. Alhamdulillah. You have to remember that now. MashaAllah, that's a good one. Okay, then we have the word atqakum. So now we're seeing that the ta, just how we saw, let me just get rid of this part. Just how we saw this kaf with the sukoon, and the kaf is part of this rule that we mentioned about the shidda and the hams. We're seeing the example of the ta also, which is the same rule. Okay, so again, what are we doing? We're stopping the sound, and then that will be followed by the hums after. At, atqakum, atqakum. The qaf has the mad alif with it, it's got the mad tabi'i, so this will be stretched for 2 counts, okay? Atqa, atqakum. Now you have to be careful here, because you've got 2 qafs after each other, and they're both different. So we've got the qaf, and then we have the kaf. You've got to make that distinction, and they have to be clear to anybody who's listening which ones you're saying. So we've got to make sure they don't sound the same. So as a reminder, the qaf, remember, is the soft palate, is more back, right? So the back of the tongue is moving in a backwards diagonal fashion, okay? Whereas with the kaf, the tongue is moving more vertically, and it's going to where the soft and the hard palate meet. Ku, 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 ku. Okay, it's not going backwards with the back of the tongue, okay, with the second one, with the kaf. So here we say atqa, atqakum. The qaf, also the first one, is actually a heavy letter. The kaf is a light letter. Okay, so we say atqaku, atqaku, atqakum. If you could try that for me, Sister Humera.
Atqakum.
Good. Again, atqakum.
Atqakum.
Yes, just after the ta, after you do you're doing the shidda, you're doing the hums, but after that, then you stop for a while. So you say at, you say at. You see the break is, the pause is a little bit too long. After the hum, straight to the qaf. Atqa, atqa, atqakum.
Atqakum.
That's better. That's better. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so if you'd like to try it from the beginning with me. Inna akramakum inda Allahi atqakum.
Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum.
The akramakum, you did a similar thing where you paused after the kaf, right?
Okay.
So akramakum.
Akramakum.
The akra, akramakum.
Akramakum.
That's better. That's better. Alhamdulillah. I'll just keep practicing with these, inshallah, because I think this is something new for you. And sometimes if you don't keep practicing them, you'll go back to your old way. So just make a note of it, inshallah, and then just keep practicing. Okay, alhamdulillah. So I wanted to mention today about, because I talk about heavy and light a lot. I haven't actually given it at any point during this course. I haven't actually given, for those of you that are new to this, I haven't given you the list of the heavy letters, and they're not very long, right? There's not many of them. So they're normally given a phrase. The phrase is khussa. Oh, sorry, what have I done? I've written bod. Right, let's get rid of that. It's khussa ضغط. This is the phrase that is used to help remember. قل. Okay, خص ضاد. In other words, it's the letter kha, it's the letter sad, the dad, the ghain, the ta, the qaf, and the ta. These are your heavy letters. Okay, they're the only heavy letters we have. Okay, no others. Okay, whenever you have these letters, these are the ones where if they have a fatha, for example, you'll say, oh, I've forgotten the dot. We'll say kha, sa, da, gha, ta, ta, ta. Okay, when we have the light letters like ba, da, la, ma, na, those ones sound lighter. Okay, now the other thing I haven't talked about, well, I've touched on it, but I haven't really explained it. And that's when we've talked about, for example, the lam, when the lam is heavy, when the lam is light. Okay, and I was telling you about how it's always in the name of Allah that you have to think about the lam. You know, is the lam heavy? It's always in the name of Allah. Anywhere else, the lams are always light, right? But the alif is also one of the letters that are sometimes heavy, sometimes light. And also the ra, we've talked about, we haven't covered it all, but I've given you some pointers about when the ra is also heavy and when the ra is light, because that's another one of those letters which is sometimes heavy, sometimes light. Again, the alif, the mad alif, is also sometimes heavy, sometimes light. So we need to sort of know, okay, when is this alif heavy and when is this alif light? And remember, this is the mad alif I'm talking about. It's not the hamza that is mutaharrik. So I'm not talking about, for example, e, or when you say a, or when you say u. Okay, it's not those ones that I'm talking about, because those are the letter hamzas that we're reading. We're talking about when you have an alif. Oh, sorry, wrong place. When you have, for example, an alif, oh goodness, it keeps going to the same place. Right, let's go a bit down. Right, here we go. When you have an alif and the letter before it will have a fatha. Okay, like, for example, what we see, let me get rid of this part. What we see here, you have the alif. Now, it doesn't matter if it's a big alif or a small alif. And before it is a fatha. Again, the letter before is, at the moment we're not looking at the letter before. We're just looking at whether it has a fatha, dhamma, or kasra, zabar, zero pesh. And in this case, we're looking for a zabar or a fatha. Okay, so we have so this is our mad alif. This is the one I'm talking about, the one where you prolong, where you make something 2 counts. Okay, if the letter before it is a heavy letter, so if we have I'm going to write a H. If there's a heavy letter with a fatha, and then you have a mad alif, then this alif will be read heavy. Alif is the mad alif is like a bit like a copycat, right? It just copies the letter before. Whatever the letter before is in terms of heavy and lightness, the alif will become that. So if the letter before is heavy, so for example, in the word khalidin, okay, we have the word khalidin. Now here you have a very big dot, but you have a mad alif, and here is my fatha before it. This is supposed to be a letter kha. One I've done a very big dot, and one is very far away. Okay, let's make it a bit closer. Here we go. So this ha is heavy. So we don't say khwa. We don't try to make this mud sound light. It's going to copy the letter. If the letter before is heavy, this alif will be read heavy. So we prolong the heaviness. We say kha, khalidin, khalidin. We don't say khalidin and try to make it light. On the other hand, if you have a word like wajahadu, wajahadu, again, we have this mad alif and we have a fatha before it. But this time we have a light letter, it's letter jim. The jim, if you look, is not part of this the heavy letters that we've listed, which means it's light. So this time we say waja, the alif will copy and extend that lightness. Waja, waja. This time we don't say waja, right? So the alif is a copycat. It copies the letter before it in terms of the heavy or lightness of it. If the letter before it has a fatha and is any of these letters that I've listed at the top, the heavy letters, if these carry a fatha and they are followed by a mad alif, so in other words, you have a kha, or you have a sa, or you have a da. I'm not going to do them all, but you have a da or a gha. Sorry, wrong way. Okay, let's do that again. or a gha, and so on and so forth, right? So if you have a kha, sa, ba, gha, these are all sounding heavy. But if you have light letters that are not in this list, like ba or mim, like ba, ma, da, ka, la, see, they sound lighter. So this is what you have to sort of be aware of whenever you see a mad alif. You have to consider, is this alif going to be read heavy or is it going to be read light? And it all depends on what the letter before it is. Is it part of this heavy letter list? If it is, then then the alif will be read heavy. If it is not in this list, then it's considered a istifal or a mustafil letter, a light letter. And in that case, the alif will be read light. Okay, I hope that makes sense now. Alhamdulillah. Right, so we've done the first part. Let's finish off this ayah. We have here then, Inna Allah again. So inna, again, there is no alif here, so we're not going to prolong the noon at the end, the noon maftuha. We say in, we hold the in because it's noon mushaddad. Remember, we hold the joining. Inna Allah. So we have the name of Allah. Again, we think about whether the lambs are heavy or light. In this case, they will be heavy because there is a fatha on the letter before. Okay, so we say in, but we have to be careful not to make the noon heavy. So not inna. Okay, it's very easy to do. Inna, no, inna. And if you get used to saying that, inna, inna, you know that's, you become familiar with that sound of the na and know that you've got to pronounce that same one. Inna, inna Allah, inna Allah. If you could try that for me, Sister Salma.
Inna Allah.
Good, mashallah, jazakumullahu khairan. Then we have the word alimun. We have the ayn, which is, now the ayn I am going to point out is a light letter, because if you look, it's not in this list. Ghain is in this list. You can see the ghain here, okay? But there's no ayn. And sometimes people get confused and they think that because they have to put more effort in when they are pronouncing the ayn, they think that ayn is actually a heavy letter. It's not. So we don't say oh, for example, we say ah, ah, ah. We can make it sound light. Okay, it is still a light letter, even though I know for some of us it requires a bit of effort. And for some of us, we will pronounce it heavy as we are on our learning journey. And then eventually, inshallah, the target is to make it sound light eventually. Okay. So we pronounce the ayn. The li is 2 counts because of the madya with it. And then we have alimun. Now, alimun, what you're really reading, if I spell it out what you're saying alimun. So actually, you've got the meme joining with the noon. Okay, that's what you're hearing, alimun. So we've got a meme with a dhamma in here, right? Which means for the dhamma part, you've got to circle the lips. Alimu, alimun, alimun. It's like, remember when we talked about even, you know how we talked about the word, for example, the kum, the suffix, the pronoun that we attach, the kum. And we said that ku, you circle the lips. And then for the meme, you come away from that because you're not circling the lips anymore. It's not a letter. One, it's not a letter that needs the circling of the lips. I'm talking about the meme here, the one here. But also, it hasn't got a dhamma, so we're not pronouncing a u sound on it. So we don't need to have our lip circled. So we circle the lips for the ku, and then we move away and say kum, right? So here you're doing a similar kind of thing where you say mu, but by the time you get to the noon, one is not a letter that needs the circling of the lips. We just spoke about the makhraj at the beginning of the lesson when I said it's the tip of the tongue going between the touching the gums between the upper 2 front teeth, right? So actually, it's not a lip letter, so we don't need to use the lips for the noon. But also, we're pronouncing it with a sukoon. We're not saying nu. If we were saying nu and pronouncing the u sound, we'd circle the lips. But we're not doing that for the noon. We're joining. We're saying alimu, and then after the circling of the lips for the meme, alimu, then you need to come away from the circling of the lips. Alimun, alimun, mun, mun. Sometimes it takes a bit of getting used to, especially if it's like especially if this is something new for you, just getting used to moving the mouth. Because, for example, even when I'm talking in English, if you see how my mouth kind of moves when I'm speaking English, there's not that much movement. There's just very small movements that are taking place. But when you are reciting Quran, you do find that sometimes you're going like mun, you have to concentrate a lot more on the position of your lips and what's happening inside and how you're moving between letters. Okay, so that's alimun. Inna Allah alimun. And this noon that you do pronounce at the end is tawassut. It's the one which is not too long, not too short. So alimun, mun, mun. Enough so you can hear it. Not too long, not too short, but stay on the noon just for a little bit. It's a bayniya or a tawassut letter. Then we have the ha. The ha in the next word is part of my heavy letters. It's the first one mentioned. Ha. So it's the heavy letter, right? So we start off with ha, ha, khabir. Now this is actually because we talked about the ra and when the ra is heavy or when the ra is light. We talked about if I was going to say khabirun, khabirun, then I have a dhamma on top, and then the ra is heavy. We'll say khabirun, okay? If I was going to continue. But because it's the end of an ayah, we're going to stop here and we're going to read the ra with a sukoon. Okay, we will say khabir. Now we need to know, is this ra now going to be heavy or light? And yesterday, I think it was yesterday, we talked about the ra. We said if the ra has a sukoon, if you're reading it with a sukoon, then what you have to do is you have to go to the letter before it, which is the ya. Now, remember, when letters don't have anything showing on them, when they don't have a zabar zir pesh or a fatha dhamma kasra, then we assume that they have a sukoon. So the ya also has a sukoon. And yesterday, I'm pretty sure it was yesterday, I think it was yesterday. Yeah. We also said that if the letter before also has a sukoon, then you move along again and you look at the letter before that one, and then it's the letter ba, and the ba has a kasra. If the letter has a kasra, if it's something at the bottom, in this case, it's the kasra. I mean, at the bottom can only be the kasra anyway. But if it has something, but it's an easy way to remember. If there's something at the top, then it's heavy. If it's something at the bottom, a haraka at the bottom, then it's light. So in this case, because of the haraka at the bottom, the ra is going to become light. So we say khabir. We don't say khabir, right? That's the heavy ra. You don't want to be saying the heavy ra. You want to say the light ra. How do we say the light ra? You just have to make sure the way you say khabi, when you say khabi, the B part is light anyway, right? You want to maintain that that lightness, right? We've talked about the makhraj of the ra, where the tip of the tongue is the tip of the tongue just comes up and down. So when you're pronouncing when you're trying to achieve a light ra at the end, then all that should be happening is once you say khabi, you want to keep the middle, the back part of the tongue has to stay in the same place. So when you say khabi, the back of the tongue isn't involved because you're not saying something heavy. It's not raised. It's not pushing back. So you want to make sure that the back of the tongue stays where it is. Okay. So you say khabi, and it's just the tip of the tongue that flicks or that comes up. And then you hold it there because it's at the wasl, the letter. Okay, so you don't rush it or you don't bounce it. You don't say khabir. It's khabir. So the back of the tongue comes, the tip of the tongue comes up, and then you hold the makhraj for enough time to complete the tawassut, not too long, not too short. Okay, let's try this, Sister Humara. Inna Allah alimun khabir.
Inna Allah alimun khabir.
The ra is a little bit heavy. I'm not sure if you noticed, but as you move to makhabi, the last part, your tongue moved a little bit. It wasn't very heavy, but it had that hint of heaviness to it. Okay, so it's just using the tip of the tongue. Khabir.
Khabir.
It's still a little bit. Still a little bit. But you know what? Because I know you're working on your ra, I'm not going to keep pushing for it at the moment. I want you to work on your heavy ra first. Let's get that right. So leave this ra at the moment, inshallah. Because if you're trying to do different types of ra, it can get a little bit confusing. Okay, let's go over this ayah, inshallah. Sister Zuleika, you ready?
Yes, just a minute.
Okay, welcome, Fiki. Okay. إن أكرمكم عند I'll do that again. إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم.
إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم.
I think we both sound the same today, don't we?
Honey, you don't sound well, poor thing.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I think I just sound worse than I feel. Alhamdulillah. But yeah, I think we both sound the same. Alhamdulillah. Let's finish the ayah off. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إن الله عليم خبير.
إن الله عليم خبير.
جزاكم الله خيرا. With your ra at the end, you have got a little bit of hums. You've got a little bit of the
Okay.
breath coming through. So as you say the ra, because remember it's very easy to do, because when the tongue comes up for the makhraj of the ra, because of the way that the inhiraf is, remember with the ra, you're passing the sound through the gap between the tongue and the upper palate. Because that gap becomes quite small because you've lifted the tongue up, it's very easy to sort of hold back on the voice and just let the breath sort of come through. What you want to do is keep pushing with the sound of your voice. Khabir.
خبير.
It's
Oh, but
better,
then
but
it
the only thing,
becomes
yes,
heavy, isn't it?
yeah, that's the only thing. You've got to just keep the back of the tongue relaxed. We'll just try it one more time. So just as you say khabi, you want to keep the back of the tongue where it is. Okay, for that part, keep that and just focus on the front. Khabir.
خبير.
It's still a bit heavy. But
Yeah.
the way you could practice also is to say, just for the sake of practice, to say khabiri. So get used to that light ra. So we'll try that. Khabiri.
خبيري.
And again, khabiri.
خبيري.
So feel how you're saying the ra. You're going to go back to that. I'll make you do it one more time. Khabiri.
خبيري.
Khabir.
خبير.
It's better. It's better that
Yeah.
it was light. It was just that humps has crept back in again.
Still there.
Yeah, sorry, alhamdulillah. It's still there, but inshallah, what I'd like you to do is when you're practicing, and we have run out of time, so I can't practice with you for
Yeah.
too long. The other thing you could do is, you know how we said khabiri?
Yeah.
You could add another step before you say it with the sukoon, and that's to say it with a shadda. So you say khabiri, then you say khabiri, right? And that's getting you to join first and then say the kasra and then try stopping and just saying khabir and just stopping halfway. So
Okay.
try that, inshallah. Khabiri, khabiri, khabir. Inshallah, just and if you want to send me a voice note, inshallah, if you ever want me to check on that, just say the whole
جزاك الله خير.
sequence, inshallah. Barakallahu fiki. Okay, inshallah, we'll stop there. Jazakumullah khairan, everybody. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا. اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.